Harley-Davidson just kicked out CEO Joe Zites after 4 years of disastrous decisions that drained loyal riders and burned millions of dollars. But you might be asking, what's the worst that could happen? Well, instead of showing him the door for good, Harley's actually keeping him around as an advisor. And their brand new CEO isn't even a motorcycle guy, just another corporate suit. Zites, who was handed the keys back in 2020, will officially step aside on October 1, 2025. And not because he's peacefully riding off into early retirement. No, it's because his leadership was so unbelievably awful that even Harley's most loyal fans were ready to revolt. Let's call it like it is, in only 4 years this man managed to take a fragile brand and turn it into a late-night joke. Under Zites, Harley's worldwide sales collapsed by more than 20% between 2022 and 2024. Not a small dip, not a slight stumble, a free fall. And here's the part that has riders fuming. Instead of telling him to pack his things and disappear, Harley wants him hanging around until February 2026 as an advisor. Advising on what exactly? How to drive away customers quicker. How to blow through investor money with zero results. Because if that's the skill set they wanted, he's nailed it. The whole advisor stunt feels like one of those hollow PR moves they hope everyone forgets about by the next quarter. But Harley's rider base isn't built like that. They don't forget, especially not the ones who've been wrenching on these bikes since the days when carburetors and ashtrays were still standard. And let's not act like this was some kind of graceful mutual exit. Zites' leadership was so tone-deaf, so disconnected from the real Harley identity, that even people who don't ride could tell something was seriously off. He wasn't from the motorcycle world at all. His background, Puma, the sneaker brand, that should have been the flashing red siren from day one. So let's rewind. Back in 2020, Harley thought it was genius to hand over control to a guy who had zero experience in motorcycles, simply because he had some success moving shoes. And what did he do with the job? He rolled out 2 grand strategies called Rewire and Hardwire. In plain English, that meant axing bikes people loved, pushing electric gimmicks, and pretending Harley's core identity didn't matter anymore. And what was his reward for this brilliance? The board cut him a $3 million bonus in 20. Yep, while sales were tanking, riders were walking away, and dealerships were drowning in unsold inventory. Zites was cashing fat bonus checks. Makes total sense, right? His masterstroke was spinning off the LiveWire into its own brand. Like rebranding would suddenly make people want to shell out $30,000 for an electric motorcycle with less range than a Vespa. It didn't work. Even with massive discounts, LiveWire sales face-planted. Some dealers couldn't even give them away. And if that wasn't enough, he approved overseas production, opening factories in Thailand to cut costs. But Harley's entire soul was tied to being made in America. That move didn't just annoy customers, it obliterated their trust. Riders didn't just feel ignored. They felt flat-out betrayed. Because if you wanted a cheap import, you'd buy a Honda. People bought Harley for grit, not a balance sheet. And then there's the rider community. The very backbone Zites shoved aside for 4 straight years. These aren't casual weekend buyers. These are riders who live and breathe oil and chrome. Under him, Harley managed to alienate them faster than ever. Dealers spoke out publicly. Hardcore Harley owners felt abandoned while the brand obsessed over its image campaigns and DEI marketing instead of focusing on what made Harley. Harley, the bikes themselves. And let's not forget the lineup fiasco. He axed beloved models like the Road King, the Electra Glide Standard, and the Sportster 8083. All entry-level classics that drew thousands into the Harley world. Gone. Just like that. Why sell bikes people actually wanted when you can replace them with overpriced high-tech rides nobody asked for? And affordability. Forget it. Under Zites, Harley's cheapest offerings crossed the $12,000 threshold, completely shutting out younger riders. The very strategy that once got new blood hooked on the Harley lifestyle was tossed out the window. When they weren't jacking up prices, they were producing bikes that sounded like glorified blenders. Riders mocked the fake synthetic engine sounds and digital dashboards that felt more Tesla than Harley. Where was the rumble? Where was the soul? Buried somewhere inside a touchscreen menu. Meanwhile, dealership legends like Matt Laidlaw and Bubba Boswell, who've spent decades breathing Harley, started calling out leadership publicly on YouTube, podcasts, and interviews. And they didn't hold back. Their message was clear. Harley needs someone at the top who actually gets what riders want, not another executive posing in a leather jacket for PR photos. These guys talk to customers every single day. They know which bikes sell and which ones rot in the back lot. But Zites wasn't listening. Instead, he doubled down on tech and corporate trends. And riders walked. Now, after all the wreckage, Harley is bringing in yet another CEO who, surprise, also isn't a biker. Because clearly hiring leaders with zero motorcycle passion has worked out perfectly so far. Enter the LiveWire Zites' golden child, his $100 million electric gamble, his bold Harley future. Too bad the market laughed it off like a bad April Fool's prank. Here's how bad it got. LiveWire debuted in 2019, right when electric hype was peaking. Tesla was shooting rockets to space. EVs were exploding in popularity. Harley's answer? A 2019 $799 electric motorcycle for people who love loud engines and hate change. The result, fewer than 1,000 sold in its first full year. Not a typo. 3 digits. It bombed so hard Harley had to slash the price by more than $7,000. That's not a discount. That's panic fire sale territory. Dealers practically begged people to take one. And still, no takers. And the kicker? Harley didn't just accept the loss and move on. They doubled down. Investor reports show they blew through over $100 million in R&D and marketing on this disaster. That's enough to build a whole new factory, not some science experiment nobody wanted. And in a desperate Hail Mary, they spun LiveWire off into its own company, thinking a new name would fix it. Spoiler, it didn't. Dealers kept reporting zero interest. Riders didn't care about a fresh logo. They wanted thunder, not silence. They wanted oil, not batteries. And they sure didn't want touchscreens. And now comes the fresh start. Harley's new CEO, Arty Stars, taking over October 1, 2025, comes from a background in strategic operations at a global consumer electronics firm. About as far from grease gears and the open road as you can get. Riders are scratching their heads at how a polished tech executive is supposed to connect with tattooed wind-in-the-hair Harley loyalists. This guy's resume screams boardrooms and spreadsheets, not torque and asphalt. Just another suit, another numbers guy, probably someone who thinks low-end torque refers to budgets. And to calm nerves, Zites will stick around until February 2026 as an advisor. Because nothing says fresh start like letting the guy who steered the ship into the iceberg whisper in the new captain's ear. It doesn't scream change. It screams desperation disguised as strategy. If Harley was serious, Zites would have been told to clear out by lunch. Instead, he'll still be in those meetings while the new CEO figures out which side the throttle's on. Dealers aren't buying it either. The ones that barely survived 2023 and 2024, stuck with unsellable electrics and overpriced models no one under 50 could afford, are watching this unfold with pure skepticism. The board's behavior shows one thing. They're not serious about fixing the mess. They're just hoping a nameplate swap at the top calms the noise. But Harley riders aren't that gullible. They're not Silicon Valley latte sippers. They're the kind of people who can hear fake exhaust notes from blocks away and call BS instantly. So where does this leave us? Will the new CEO finally do something that makes sense, like actually listening to dealers and riders? Or is this just another round of executive musical chairs while the brand keeps nosediving? Make no mistake, Harley isn't standing strong right now. They're clinging to the faded American icon identity while the entire global motorcycle market races forward. Electric challengers from India are surging. Russia's building military-grade e-bikes. And Harley, they're still wondering why nobody wants to fork over $30 for a lifestyle sales pitch. Riders want real things. Affordable entry-level V-twins, raw exhaust notes, and bikes priced for people with everyday jobs, not hedge fund millionaires. But instead, Harley's feeding them buzzwords, reshuffles, and Silicon Valley playbooks. Every month without change, their customer base ages out. Dealers lose hope and rivals grab the market share Harley used to own. And that's why the next 6 months between October 2025 and February 2026 are do or die. That's the window where Harley has to get real or collapse entirely. But with Zites still lurking and another non-biker running the show, the odds don't look great. Riders are watching. Dealers are watching. The whole market's watching. Harley's nostalgia tank is running on fumes. Their next move better be more than symbolic, or it's game over. Drop your thoughts below and hit subscribe, because Harley's not the only one making wild decisions out there.